Since July 2019, most international visitors to New Zealand have been charged an International Visitor, Conservation and Tourism Levy, or an IVL, of $35. The levy payment is to improve infrastructure and sustainability projects in the country's tourist attractions. Australians and Pacific Island nations are exempt. Although Aussies are our greatest contributors to our New Zealand tourism, they make just over 1.5 million of the 3.89 million visitors. China is the second largest visitor cohort. International tourism generated $10.8 billion in revenue for New Zealand, ending March 2023. It is our second largest export earner behind dairy products. Currently, we're at 77.4% of pre-COVID levels, but visitor numbers are expected to grow beyond these levels. Now, with more visitors comes more pressure on infrastructure, the environment and communities. And the New Zealand taxpayer should not have to bear this solely. But what is a fair rate to charge international visitors? As I said, at its current rate of $35, it will generate between $80 million a year between 2024 and 2026, which really is a drop in the bucket because it falls well short of the costs for our conservation land, which is estimated at $96 million a year. A discussion paper from MB has warned that New Zealand is already considered an expensive country to visit, and raising the levy may see a drop in visitors. Various fee levels have been discussed, from doubling to lifting it as high as $100 per visitor. Well, joining me now is the Minister of Tourism and Hospitality, Matt Doocey. Minister, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leah. Thanks for having me on the show.
Look, great to talk to you, Matt. Firstly, do you think New Zealand is already an expensive country to visit?
Well, I think potentially. I mean, that's quite a situational question. Like anything in life, I think for some people at parts of their life course, we might be potentially expensive, and at other parts of their life course, maybe not. So what we do know is there's actually quite a bit of demand for people wanting to visit New Zealand. If you look at pre-COVID levels, we're already sitting at about 110% for the number of people coming out from America to visit New Zealand post-COVID when compared to pre-COVID. So it shows people are still wanting to travel to New Zealand.
Now, the National Party didn't support the idea of the levy back in 2019, saying it lacked focus and substance. But now under the coalition government, you've begun consulting with MB. Why the change of heart?
Well, in a way, in my experience of being a new minister, I'd probably be as bold to say is that the International Visitor Levy, or IVL, in some ways still does lack a bit of focus. I mean, I think one of the questions we're asking the public and the sector is, should we increase the levy review? That's a legislative review every 5 years. But also, where should that money be focused on? And I think at times the sector's been very clear that it has been untargeted, not been that clear about what to prioritise. So that's a question we'll be asking in the consultation.
Matt, since the Australians make up our biggest number of visitors, would you look at changing the rules, maybe surrounding charging them or our Pacific neighbours?
No, we won't be changing the rules. So whether it be Pacific Islands or Australians, they will still be exempt. What we're asking people to do is their feedback on whether we should increase the levy. It currently sits at about $35. Advice I've seen that with inflation, it should sit really around $42.15 to purchase today what it did purchase 5 years ago. And then, of course, potentially there might be the option, as you said in your introduction, to increase it to either 50, 70 or 100. And more importantly to me is I think we need some clarity about where we should prioritise that funding. It is hypothecated 50% for tourism and 50% for conservation. And what we do know in tourism, there is a deficit of what's called mixed-use infrastructure. So picture Queenstown, a low ratepayer base, high tourist numbers, and at times struggle to invest in the infrastructure it needs.
Former Tourism Minister Stuart Nash wanted to hike it to $200, Matt, in 2022. Something you'd look at now?
Yeah, look, in fairness to Stuart Nash, I don't think I'll be taking much out of his playbook. He also wanted to ban backpackers, which I thought was extremely disappointing because, in fact, backpackers are a valuable part of the market and actually spend quite a bit over the long period they're here, and of course come back at a later stage in life when they might be potentially earning a bit more. So we want to be open for business to all types of tourists, and what we do know is our international visitor surveys show around 93% of people leave New Zealand either satisfied or highly satisfied, so that's great.
Minister, if the levy was raised and whatever rate we land on, at the moment, as you said, 50% for tourism and then 50% goes to Department of Conservation. Will it still maintain 50%, meaning where will the bulk of it go to?
Now, you might just have to repeat that, so Leah, I'm just driving and it just cut out.
Oh, that's okay. Well, at the moment, with the 50-50 split with the Department of Conservation and Tourism, if the levy is raised, will it remain a 50-50 split?
Yeah, so that is hypothecated, so that will remain a 50-50 split. And part of that is because, as we know, a large driver of people coming to New Zealand is our outdoors, it's our scenery, it's our biodiversity. And I actually think tourism can be a great enabler of conservation in New Zealand. And quite rightly, we want tourism to pay its fair share to supporting our dock estates. And equally, what we want to make sure is that within conservation, tourism isn't seen as a predator, and it should be encouraged because both can go hand in hand.
The other ideas that have popped through, Minister, is from the Hotel Association. They've advocated for allocating GST be captured from tourists rather than a sole reliance on creating new taxes or fees. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, going around the country as a new minister, I've genuinely said that I'm open to hearing new ideas and nothing's off the table for me. What I've heard is quite a consensus within the sector that they're looking for some form of local income funding stream that's collected at a point of activity and returned locally. So whether that be some return of GST or potentially some have talked about an accommodation levy, that's something I'm open to hearing about. I'm not actively working on anything, but I'm interested to hear as a new minister what the sector thinks can help it grow, because when you look at the state of the books, we're in a technical recession. Tourism is our second biggest export earner, and I think there's a real opportunity to not only grow tourism but actually bring more people in the shoulder and off-peak season where we've traditionally had lower numbers, and I think that's a real opportunity for the country and the economy.
So you mentioned the hotel or the bed tax, which is many countries do it, especially in Europe. They impose a bed tax. Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown says the Prime Minister was gung-ho for it. Is he gung-ho, Matt?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I haven't talked to the Auckland Mayor about this. Obviously, he's got his comments, but what I do know is that ultimately what we